How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about disciplinary consistency and really just, I guess, providing a little bit more in-depth conversation on what I was talking about in a previous podcast about allowing my son to learn a little bit more responsibilities, teaching him the difference between tools and toys, and just some of the disciplinary methods that I've been implementing as of late as I begin to learn more about his personality every day. The approach has to be something that changes with that. There's no one set mold for all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So when it comes to discipline and consistency, in the beginning, it was just really a mixed bag. Now, to kind of reiterate what I had said in a previous podcast, I'm not here to tell you guys how to parent or how to approach your children, just providing a little bit of knowledge that I've learned along the way, because through all the books that you read, through all the posts that you find online, you're going to find that every child is different. And there's no one way to approach the situation. And really, I don't want to say there's one way that's better than or the best in comparison to all of them. So really, it's just whatever you find that works for you. Now, there are some social things that as a society we might not approve of. However, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just here to talk about my experience. So when it comes to disciplining my son, I find that he's a really rambunctious kid. And there's a lot of parents out there, they don't often have, say, perfect little angels, kids that just want to snuggle up with you and watch TV or play quietly, wake up very soundly. When it comes to some kids, and my son in particular, he's more a rowdy, rambunctious child. He's in the moment. He's got a lot of energy, and it's up to me as his father to be able to keep up with that. From stories that I've heard, I was exactly the same as a kid. So the fruit does not fall very far from the tree, and just paying attention, really close attention to him and finding what it is he's trying to say or what it is he's trying to convey to me, with whether it's just a limited range of vocabulary at the time or an inability to really deal with his emotions. I really have to step back and try to focus on what it is that is going through his mind or how he might be feeling in that moment. So the discipline sort of is tailored to each of those things on a point-by-point basis, as well as allowing myself the ability to walk into a situation and understand in the beginning, say, going out to a restaurant, that if he wants to just lose it, I have to have whatever it is that I'm willing to do in that moment ready to follow through with. So if we go to a restaurant, for example, and my son decides he's just going to wig out, he doesn't want to be there, he's going to kick, scream, whatever the case may be. If that's what he wants to do, well, going into that scenario, before we've even sat down, I already know that I'm ready to just get up as a family and we're just going to get all of our food to go. And that's the end of it. I'm not going to try to force him to fit into some mold, because that is not a scenario that I'm really in control of at that point. I can't really, I guess, handle a situation in public the way that I would want to, which is calmly and collectively. I feel that it would add a lot of unnecessary stress, and it might cause me to lose control of the situation. and I'm the adult, so I have to remain in control at all times. And if I lose control, well, that's where, either my wife or myself, like if my wife is losing control, we have to pick up the slack for the other person. So I'm fully prepared to just say, you know what, we're leaving. And I convey it in a way to him so that he understands that he needs to calm down. And if he can't calm down, then we're just going to leave. And it's through those sort of this or that type of training lessons, like if you do this, this is what will happen, that I feel he's really learned that I'm really a one, what would the term be? A one chance kind of guy or one chance dad, that he gets one shot. If he's acting crazy, I tell him, hey, you need to calm down. We need to sit down and eat our food. And if you can't do that, then we're going to leave. And it's through other scenarios too. Like when I'm trying to put his little sister to bed, I tell him he needs to keep it quiet. Even that was a whole nother learning curve right there. Putting the two of them to bed, but just learning the lesson that you get one shot with me at least. And if you don't, I'm fully ready to commit to the discipline that I've set forth. So when I say that we're going to get up and leave, that's what we're going to do. There's no, well, just pushing off and showing that, well, there's room for haggling, or there's room for him to feel like there's negotiation, or he can push it because he knows that he can get away with being told stop maybe 10 times before it's like, no, we're getting up and we're leaving and I'm just losing control. I'm still in control by the second time. For sure. I can guarantee it. I'm still in control. So for me, that's when I need to execute that discipline. And he may not like it. He may kick and scream. And I've had to learn as well along the road not to sort of pull him or pick him up against his will. So even if he freaks out at that time, I get down onto his level and I tell him to look at me, and I look at him and I tell him that I told you that you needed to calm down or that we were going to leave. This was the deal. And I present it as that. Most of these scenarios, it's like it's a deal type situation. We're bargaining with each other, even though he should be listening. But at least I let him feel like he has some choice with what's going on. Maybe that provides him a little sense of responsibility. At the same time, that he knows if he breaks the deal, then this is the consequence of that action. So other types of scenarios that I try to, or that I can kind of get into is, as I mentioned before, trying to get the two of them down for bed. I make it a habit every night. Every night, it's routine that when his younger sister is ready for her bottle and ready for bed, I go up to my son and I tell him, okay, hey, Pops, you know what time it is, right? Daddy's going to give sister her bottle. So you know what that means. It means it's quiet time. It means we need to keep it down. And you can watch your TV, or you can, do whatever it is you're going to do. But we got to keep it down. And once she's asleep, Daddy will come out and we can play, or we can watch something together. And in the beginning, he didn't really quite, I guess, follow through with it. But because I've made it a habit every single night, and he now knows that this is what's going on, sometimes he'll run back to the room to tell me something, or he'll run back when I'm giving his sister her bottle, and he'll want to sort of check on us. And in the beginning, he would be really loud about it, but now he's a lot more quiet. As soon as he comes up, I can hear him running down the hallway, but he'll start to tiptoe as he gets closer to the bedroom, and then he'll whisper to me what it is he wants to say, or what it is he's trying to do. And if I make eye contact with him first, I'll ask, hey, what's up, Pops? And then he'll tell me. And then it's like, okay, well, going back to the living room then. And that's sort of been something that's worked out. And I think it's just again another area for consistency. It's setting boundaries for him, and it's putting rules in place. I shared in a previous podcast about teaching him the difference between tools and toys. And it's been pretty much 2 days now that he's had this flashlight, and he's gotten a lot of his sort of angst out of it, waving it around. I mentioned before, like a lightsaber. He shined it in my eyes a couple times, and I've not taken it from him as I promised him. I told him that it's time to give it a break. Go ahead and put it away. Telling him he needs to put it away. He needs to give it a break. And in the first couple of times, it was met with resistance, but now I think he's beginning to understand that if he's breaking the rules with it, he's not losing it. He's not getting it taken away, but he sort of has to put that tool on timeout. So the next phase with this sort of learning process for him is going to be, you need to use it when you need it. So during the daytime, when you can clearly see what it is you're looking at, he doesn't necessarily need a flashlight. So it's going to be my responsibility or my job to teach him that if you can see, you don't need the light. We don't need to use a flashlight when it's not necessary. So I've kind of tiptoed into it right now. He'll have his flashlight and he'll be using it, and then I'll just ask him, not in a sarcastic tone, but just asking him, do you need to use it right now? What are you using it for? Or are you playing with it? This will, I think, instill in him that sort of question process as he grabs things like tools. With toys, I don't think you need to even think about that. I want to play with it, and you're just going to use your imagination, and whatever may happen will happen. So, but with tools, he needs to understand that when he goes to get the flashlight, what is the purpose for getting it? Does he need it? Is there a particular task he needs to accomplish with it? So I give him some tasks, or I have given him some tasks that he can use it for. Looking under the couch for toys that he's stowed under there over the past few months. Looking in the closet because the closet's a little dark. These are things he can do during the day. And then at night, if I tell him to go back into the hallway and it's dark, well, he can light the way and then turn on the light switch. So I think it might have been like a subliminal thing, the reason why I wanted to get him this flashlight, because, there were times when I would send him on timeout before I was figuring out this whole sense of consistency with discipline. And he would tell me, it's really dark back there. It's really scary. I would tell him, no, it's not dark. Just turn the light on. But that would be one of the hesitant or resistant things that would come from setting him on timeout. I didn't really put the two and two together that maybe he just doesn't want to be on timeout, or maybe it really is dark for him and he is, a little bit afraid. So now that he has a flashlight, I've not heard that comment, but I've also not had to send him on timeout as much as before. I think that for me and for my son, at least, remaining consistent, making deals with him, and sort of speaking to him on his level has been something that has really worked out, as well as being ready to execute the disciplinary action that I've already predetermined. So if I know that, another example, he's acting wild and playing too crazy with his toys, I know that I'm ready to have him put them away, or I will put them away if he's not. And the reason I say that I'm ready to put them away if he's not is because it's a scenario where I can put myself in a position to not be in control of the situation. If I'm not willing to put the toys away, then I might find myself sitting there arguing with my child until he finally puts the toys away. And what's going to result in that? Am I going to have to raise my voice? Am I going to have to threaten punishment or timeouts? I don't want to do that. So if he's not willing to do it, then I will do it. And he'll watch or he'll typically help. But it gets the point across that the toys are taken. At the end of the day, that's not what he wants. It might be like adding on an additional punishment by saying you need to clean them up as well. And that might be met with resistance. So any punishment that I'm willing to give him, I also have to be willing to follow through with myself. Now, if I wanted him to be the one to pick up those toys, I think that, as I stated before, would definitely be a reach. He might not follow through with that. So just being ready to pick them up myself. And then when it comes to the bedtime routine, that there was a lot of resistance with that in the beginning. However, he's gotten used to the routine. He's gotten used to just it's time to put on your PJs, and he tries to piece two and two together, thinking as soon as his PJs are on, boom, he has to go to bed. So he doesn't want to put his PJs on. So I try to talk to him on his level and tell him, no, it's time for your PJs right now, but it's not time for bedtime yet. And I use that as a bargaining chip. So after his PJs are on, another scenario is we'll be watching a show for him. And usually it's like a calm television show that is not full of crazy action, or we'll read a book. He's leaned away from books lately. I don't know if maybe I need to find books that are more on his level that'll entertain him, or if I've just shown him the world of entertainment and now he's never going to look back to books again. And maybe I just need to stop with TV altogether. That's to be determined, though. And again, if whatever you guys are doing, you got to do you. You got to figure it out on your own, and it's all trial and error. So if he starts to get loud, and this is usually when his sister's already asleep, and I'll just pause the show immediately. I'll come up to him and I'll say, hey, what did we talk about? We talked about it, your sister being asleep, and right now it's quiet time. So you either need to be quiet or it's going to be bedtime, but you decide. It's your choice. And he'll look at me and say, okay, I'll be quiet. I'm okay. That's the deal. And it tends to work out. If it doesn't, he goes straight to bed. That if that's what I want to convey, then that's what happens. Other times I might say, we're not going to watch your show anymore. We're going to watch something that mom wants to watch or that dad wants to watch. But usually it's like, no, you're acting up. There's really nothing else for any of us to be doing at this hour. Let's just go to bed. And again, it's been something that's worked out. So one of the things I kind of want to close on, I guess, to sort of wrap this whole talk about being consistent with discipline, being consistent with just the approach that I have been taking with my son. If you guys are implementing this yourself, I would just really want to reiterate that it takes time. I didn't just do this one day and it was just this magic pill and all of a sudden I have the perfect family. No, that is not the case. Like anything, it requires subtle change and consistency on my part as his parent. If you guys want to try this, I would express the same level of commitment to you, that you need to remain diligent in what it is you're doing. Keep the disciplines within reason. I don't think it has to reach such escalated levels in terms of yelling, in terms of just picking up my son or dragging him or anything like that. I can talk to him and I can tell him what it is I either need him or want him to do, and converse with him that we made a deal and this is the consequence of not following through with that deal, as well as making the deal reasonable. Not making it, you need to be quiet for the rest of the day. I need you to settle. I need you to calm down. And within the scope of that, I think it provides him a lot more leeway with regards to what he can do. I don't want him to have to feel like he can't be a kid, that he can't just be himself. There are only a few things that I guess I kind of require as a parent. I want his sister to be able to sleep at night. I know he's going to be loud, so when she's sleeping, I keep him, you know, as physically as far away from her within the boundaries of the home as possible, even though the noise travels. But it allows him to be a little rowdy, but not too loud. And by keeping the disciplinary actions sort of within reason, that if this is what I would like you to do, to calm down, to keep it down, to eat your dinner, to relax, like whatever the case may be. And if you don't want to follow through with that, boom, go ahead and go on timeout. Sit in your room, think about it, and then go in there and have a conversation about it with them. I found that I've reached a lot more, or I've made a lot more progress as a father with my son doing that than just kind of winging it. I relate it to work and how there's an order of operations. At least as a machinist, there's an order of operations in what you do. And if you make a mistake, there's a way to trace it back into how you can fix it the next time. And if you want to streamline the process, you don't just reinvent the wheel either. You make subtle incremental changes, and then you see after trial and error what is going to happen. Is it better? Is it worse? And the same thing when it comes to, I guess, child rearing, is it requires subtle changes because there's so many more variables when it comes to just us as human beings and children in general who are still developing mentally and emotionally. I think that there's going to be so much more to learn and so much more to change from just after releasing this, that the same has to go for you guys listening, as for future parents out there. Have a plan and change it incrementally. It's one thing to read a book, want to implement that, and easily get deterred because your child isn't like the child of the parent who wrote that book. It's one thing to just read another book and then jump right into that scenario and then be discouraged as well. Your child is going to adapt to a little bit of everything. And I think you'll find that it may be something that works for you. And if it doesn't, I mean, there's plenty of other books out there, plenty of other podcasts out there. I hope that mine resonates with those of you who are listening. If it does, feel free to let me know. You can send me a DM on my Instagram, or you guys can shoot me an email or check out my website. There's a bunch of shameless plugs right now, but still, I think that there's a lot to be learned, and a lot that can still change and still evolve. But on that, if you guys made it this far in the podcast, I want to thank you again for your continued support. It's just a learning curve, but you got to stay consistent with your disciplinary actions and respect the little human being that you're bringing up into the world, because they may act or discipline the way that you do. And if it didn't work for them, it might not work for their children. At the end of the day, got to try to find what works for everybody. And everybody doesn't fit one mold. So thank you guys. And as always, till next time, see ya.